Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the second video in the restoration series for this Graetz Melodia 519. I kind of hit a bit of a stumbling block with this one. I expected this thing to go through very smoothly because I've done the exact same one before. As is sometimes the case with these restorations, Murphy's Law comes in and throws all our plans out the window. I expected to complete this project in 2 videos, so this would have been the end one. As it is, I think there'll be another one. And the reason is this thing went wrong in a rather weird way, but the reason I'm going to show you exactly what went wrong is because I want you to learn from my mistakes. And I've said this time and time again, sometimes you have to leave well enough alone. And in this particular case, it wasn't really that. I had to do what I did, but I want to show you what can go wrong when you think things are going so smoothly and you're so good and this is going to work brilliantly and you're going to finish it in 2 videos and then boom, 3 of the bands just disappear. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you want to find out exactly what happened, you're going to have to bear with me for a while. So stick around, enjoy the video, and by all means, relate your woes similar to this one in the comments below. Enjoy it. But before I carry on, I want to thank the sponsors of this video, PCBWay. You'll find them at PCBWay.com, and they're the people I go to for all the PCBs that I use in my projects. But of course, they don't just do PCBs, they also do 3D printing, which I've used before to great success. They do CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and a host of other services that'll take your project right from the beginning all the way to a fully assembled project if that's what you desire. If you look at the list of products and capabilities, they've got a huge array of services. I'm sure you'll find something for your needs. And the 11th anniversary activities have started. Another opportunity for you to win some prizes and make your experience with them even more fun. The cleaning job was something that I was staring at, wondering when to start, and I decided to do that next. I took the dial glass off, don't want to break that, put it away safely, and then clean this faceplate, which was very difficult to clean. I ended up using Sif, which is a kitchen cleaner, and then washed it all off with isopropyl alcohol. Also noticed that there's no pointer for the FM. That little red sticker there was definitely just put in to help because the pointer's been lost. The treble control has got that indicator and that's working perfectly. The base as well, so that's been lubricated and cleaned as well. And then the chassis itself. Now this again was very therapeutic, takes a long time, lots of isopropyl alcohol, and I used the airbrush system, which is absolutely fabulous. I use an airbrush with isopropyl alcohol and brushes, and it just washes off and pours off, so you don't end up with the dirt staying on the chassis itself. And cleaning has the added benefit of allowing you to look at things more closely. Now, some of you have actually mentioned this. You pointed out that the tuning condenser's got a short plate, and indeed it has. So I've got to repair that before I start playing with the dial cord and getting this thing to track all the way across. So one thing at a time, let's start with the tuning condenser. I can see the outer, that flap there is definitely bent inwards, and I've put the multimeter across the 2 points for that particular part of the condenser. So if we go down here, it shorts. Okay. Now I'm going to gently pull that out, and I'm going to use an X-Acto knife. We don't want to bend these others in, we just want to bend this one out. It's probably enough. Actually, that guy looks a little bit bent there as well. This could well have been these wires that were flapping around. So now I'm going to try tune it all the way. No shorts there. Let's go the other way. No shorts there, so it's extending all the way across. I'm going to check the other one as well, just for good measure. If I can reach down there. One of these is the front end, one of these is the oscillator. I should get no shorts on either. Now you've got to be careful because depending on which band you're on, there is actually a low impedance to ground between the capacitor, across the capacitor. For example, I've got this on, what is that, medium wave. If we look at this, we got 0, and there we got 2.8 ohms. So if I put on, what is that? Medium wave. That's medium wave. No, that's medium wave. There is a coil to ground. On shortwave, there's a very low resistance to ground, so you can't really measure with that. You've got to choose one of the bands that has a high impedance to ground. FM is usually the case. If you look at the schematic, you'll see what I mean. These switches will switch a coil across the capacitor, and that's a low resistance, DC resistance, so you think you have a short, and in fact you don't. Okay, so I think that is sorted. The next task made me rip the remaining hair on my head off, and that had to do with winding or rewinding the dial cord for the FM. You see, I had to change the spring because the spring, the one that was there, was completely messed up, and it looks like someone had completely wrapped this around or messed around with that. And I'm getting this to the end, and it really is at the end because the spring is almost touching there. So I don't know whether they cut a bit of cord off. You know, I did unwind that knot they had here, and the smaller spring meant, well, yeah, smaller, the corrected spring meant that this excess was taken up. So it is working, and I think it's actually getting to the end before the spring actually touches the pulley, but we'll have to wait and see when I get this thing tuning again. If not, I'll have to put a smaller spring, maybe have to replace the dial cord completely, because the spring may well not be in the right place. I'm not sure. This dealing with this was difficult, and the way that I achieved it was, you know, I don't know if you know, but this thing has got 2 little screws on there and there, and you can actually loosen them so that you can rotate this pulley around the shaft of the tuning condenser. But because this front doesn't come off, you're doing it from the top here, and it's very, very difficult. But I think I've got it. And talking about the FM dial, there was one other issue. Let me show you. You may recall that this thing had no dial pointer. So I made one, and I actually used one that I previously made for the Nord Mende. One of the Nord Mendes didn't have one, and I copied it. This one I had to change slightly because I wanted to make this this ledge here angled so that it slides along there, and I'm not sure exactly where to position it. I've turned this all the way to the right, so I think this will be about here, but I'm going to put it in, and then I'll have to adjust it when I get the dial glass in. Actually, how am I going to do this? It's better to do it in the middle. So I'm going to hold it there, bring it to the middle, and I think I've got a bit more leeway here. And there we go. Let's get rid of this guy. So that'll probably need a little felt tip on there like that one's got, but I want to test it with the dial glass on. As it is, it's staying pretty vertically. This is going to rub on the back of the glass, so I may need to change that angle there, you know, angle it a bit more. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll do that. I'll put a bit of felt underneath there as well, so it slides easily on that. Actually, it's sliding pretty well. It sort of turns over there, but it seems to be sliding pretty well. And where is it? It's on this end here. I'm not sure how far it's supposed to go. Let's go to the other end. I think it might have to come a little bit to the right. So it might have to do that. Again, I'll just have to wait and see when I've got the actual dial glass on. This usually has a fishing line like we have up here. There's usually a fishing line that sort of holds this in place, and this one doesn't have any, and I don't recall whether my other model had one either. So those little things have been done, and what I'm going to do next is put the tubes back in and see what it is we've got. Make sure we haven't messed anything up. All right, what did I say? I wanted to check if I hadn't messed anything up. Well, I've got news for you. On the FM, I haven't messed it up, but I've detected a problem that was there already. And on the AM, well, That one I've really and truly messed up. But let me show you something first on the FM, right? I'm getting FM. Can't play music, but yeah, I'm getting FM, okay? But let me show you what frequencies I'm getting. And let me show you on this thing. I'm going to put it up to the high end, which is 100 megahertz. So I've set this to 100, and we'll place that on the bench and see where we pick it up. It's sending out a tone. Okay, so there's 100, almost at the end, but it goes further. So let's find out to where it goes, okay? So I've put it all the way to the end, and now I'm just going to wind this up. Okay, so it's going to 100.5. That's not too bad, right? But let me go to the bottom end. Let me put this at 88. Actually, this thing goes down to 87.5. This particular little generator goes to 87.5, and then it'll wrap around to 108. So it's 87.5, okay? Let's see where that is. Look at that. It's over here. And there's the bottom of the dial. So this thing is completely shifted. In fact, it's not shifted because the top end is okay. What it's done is it's taken the 87.5, which should be down here, and it's compressed it into there. So there is some RF alignment issues on this, and I have to deal with that because that's quite a big difference over here. This thing's probably tuning from, well, actually, I don't know where it's tuning from because I can't get this guy lower than 87.5. But what I can do, yeah, I can actually test that. I want to find out where that's tuning to. Let me try something else. This signal generator over here is what I got just as an afterthought. I really did not make much use of it because it's difficult to get the precise frequencies, and having this one, it's certainly better. And I've got the other signal generator for the AM stuff at lower frequencies. But when you get to a situation where you need more than or less than 87.5 but more than 20 megahertz, which is what my signal generator produces over there, this thing might come in useful. And if I look at this on the F band, this thing goes up to 450, but I want it on the lower range. So I'm looking at it somewhere here. There's 80, there's 90, and this thing has modulation, but I believe it's AM modulation, but for some reason you can get it. So the first thing I'm going to do is set this to 88. That's on 88 now. Tune it. Nothing over there, so 88. I know that's 88. I will switch this thing off. And now I'm going to switch that guy on. Yeah, the problem is I've got a radio station on 88. Let me put oscillation on here. There's 88. Now I'm going to write it down. Actually, I'm going to go all the way to the end here. I think we all agree that that's where it is, right? And it's at the end. All right, let me get rid of the modulation. So whatever that is there is that over there, right? Now, how am I going to determine what it is there? Because at the moment it's saying, what does that say there? That's 80, that's 90, that's 85. That's like 84. Now that's quite a bit lower than what it should be. But I can check that, and the way to do that is to use my scope. Let me show you what's on the scope at the moment. I've got the scope picking up the signal from the signal generator. The way I'd connected this, I hadn't even connected it to the radio. It's just this wire going on alongside that was inducing it into the FM stage, so it's acting as its own aerial. But now I'm actually reading this off the scope, and I want to see what frequency I'm getting there. And the best way to do that is with the cursors, and I'm going to, oh, it's giving me that up there, 85. Huh. Okay, let me try the counter again. I wasn't getting this earlier. Okay, it's giving me that. I was going to measure the period of the wave and estimate that, but it's giving me 85.1 megahertz. So it's actually measuring this thing quite well. See, if I put the oscillation on, if I put the modulation on, I get that. Take off modulation, I'm getting the carrier. And now that I've determined that this thing is reading, it's tuning all the way down to 85.2 or something, I can show you that this thing does indeed work, right? Okay, so now I do need to play with the front end, the RF alignment part of this. I'm not going to worry about the IF yet. I want to get the band to be more or less accurate. In fact, what I want to do is I want to get the band to start at the bottom at 87.5, and I want it to go up to 101.6 or 7 or 8, because my favorite station, actually I can't do that. I've just realized this is not my radio. A friend in Lisbon could have completely different needs. I'm going to leave the top where it is at 100 or 100.5, which is perfectly fine, and I'm going to try and bring the bottom frequency up to 87.5. So let me look at the instructions and see what it is they tell us to do when we want to change the lower frequency. To start adjusting the RF alignment, we've got to look at the alignment instructions they give us, and they're pretty complete, and they're all in German. But fortunately, numbers are the same in most places. So we look down here, and we've got, this is the setting. You set it to medium wave, long wave, short wave, long wave, etc., etc., etc. And this is FM. These three are for FM, okay? So we're only interested in these bottom ones. And what they tell us is sender abstimmen. I think it's the sender is your generator setting. So you'd set a signal at that frequency. And we can see that these two are related to the IF alignment, 10.7 megahertz. And you set your tuner to the 100 megahertz mark, okay? We're not interested in that at the moment. We'll come back to that later. We're interested in these two over here, okay? And what they tell us is you send a signal of 88.5 and you tune to 88.5. That's the lower one we're interested in. And we're aligning coil 17 and coil 14. Okay, then we send 98, which I can achieve already on my, actually I can achieve both of these frequencies on my little ELV sub 3 signal generator, and you set it to 98 and you tune to 98 and you adjust these two trimmer capacitors. Let's just remember, okay, the one we want to really lower or adjust most is this one over here, L17 and L14, and then we'll go to the top end and let's see what it is we're doing. First of all, where we're doing it, and then we look at the schematic and see what it is we are doing. You remember the schematic? Well, it's got everything on here, believe it or not. This is what we're looking at down here. This is the schematic or the drawing of the top of that FM can. And we see we've got our tuning condenser over here. And this is L14 and L17. Now, one of these will be for the front end and one of these will be for the oscillator. I'm not sure which one yet, but the one, in fact, what I'm going to do is probably both. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just worry about the oscillator for now, because that's my issue. I'm just going to worry about the oscillation, try and get the oscillator in line, because that's the oscillator is what's going to create the correlation between what you're tuning to and what you see on the dial. And that's the part that I'm most interested in. And as soon as I know which one that is, and I think it's 17, I'll be doing the 98 one as well here with the tuning, the trimming, two trimmers, which I believe were these two. 12, 24 was it? Yeah, here we go, 12 and 24. So let's go back and see what it is we're doing when we play with 17 and 14. If we look at the schematic again, we go to the front end, the FM front end, which is over here. We can see that, where is 17? 17 is this guy over here. Yeah, 17 is this one over here. And the 17 is definitely, you see there's the one of the tuning gangs of the tuning condenser, and there is the other one. You can see the dotted line that's joining the two. So 17 is, I believe, the oscillator, yep, and then 14 is the front end. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust it so that when we're at the bottom of the scale, we're at approximately, I'm going to go to 87.5 right at the bottom. And then when I do the final alignment at the end, I will follow the instructions and go to 88.5, which is what they tell us to do. I just want to make sure that I get the bottom right because I don't have the dial glass in. And by playing with these, I can really get a feel for which is which. All right, if you know what I mean. So let's go back to the radio. We'll send a signal of 87.5 and see if we can, well, if we can bring it down to the bottom of the dial. Right, this is at 87.5. Let me put it out of the way there, but it'll be picked up by the antenna. I'll put the RF on. Oh, maybe that's a bit too strong. I think I'm going to just reduce the power on here. Yeah, that should do it. So that's at 87.5. I want to bring it down. I want to get 87.5 down here. So I'm going to move this right to the edge where I just pick it up. There. Now, according to the drawing, I believe this guy is L17. I got it. Okay, let me go down further. I think it's clockwise. Further down. Yeah, further down. Brilliant. I'll go all the way down. There we go. That's 87.5 right at the bottom. Now I'm going to go to the top to 100, and I have to adjust these two trimmers here, one of these, and I can't remember which one is which. C24 is the one I think I need to do. And C24, according to the drawing, is this one over here. So I'm going to set this to 100. That's at 100. I'm going to go to the end. In fact, I'm going to give it 100.5 because I'm doing this to the end. 100.5. RF on. Let's tune to the top. I don't know what this happened here, but 100.5. 100.5 seems to be here. So what are we receiving? Let's see what's happening here. This thing has shifted the whole dial. I'm now at 101. I want to go up and see what it is I'm getting at the top there. $103. Oh, this has gone all the way to 103. Aha, okay. So what's happened here? I wonder if I shouldn't leave it at 103. Let me tell you what's happened here. I have taken that guy and moved it down, and that one is shifted up. So I've actually stretched this whole thing again. I'm beginning to wonder whether I shouldn't leave it like that, because now let me see if I can adjust it to 103, okay? Just for make sure we can. That's there. I want to move it up. Here I need a better screwdriver just to sort of break the grip. Be careful. That's 103. Now let me go down to 102. There's 102. Now where's 102? And I'm going to move. There's 102. I want to move that up. Now it's 102. I've lost it. There's too many stations up there right now. Let me get the antenna out of the... Even without the antenna, it's still picking up all sorts of stuff. What am I sending? 102. That's 102. Let's set it to... Oi, this is annoying. I'm going to put it to 101.5 or 100.5. We can then always play with it later, but I want to set it to what it's sort of supposed to be. 100.5. Where are we getting that? It's there. I want to move it up. That's not 100.5 at the top. Now we've got to go down to the bottom again to 87.5. And it's shifted again, you see? You move one, you move the other. Oi. All right. Whoa. I'll have to do the top and the bottom and the top and the bottom and the top and the bottom quite a few times. Make sure I get that right, because that was an issue that really confused me here. This thing was way up there, and it wasn't just a question of moving the dial pointer. It was actually an alignment issue, an RF alignment issue. So that one is resolved. And I don't know whether what happened was when the guy played with a spring, remember the spring was completely stretched out, and he made a knot here, and then he adjusted this to try and get what he needed within the span that the spring was able to move from left to right. I think that's probably what happened. Now we come to the AM, and that is a problem. A big problem. I did notice one thing about the dial pointer, but that's not the main issue here. The dial pointer is actually hooked onto the spring connection there. I don't think it's supposed to be that far to the right. We'll adjust that later. But it's broken on here, so I need to remove that and glue it. But that right now is my secondary concern. The main concern is that I'm picking up absolutely nothing. You remember we were picking up very well on AM. Long wave, short wave, medium wave, everything was great. And well, actually long wave wasn't, but the others were. Right now, I hardly get anything on medium wave, which should be buzzing right now. It should be full of stuff down here, right? And then I noticed something interesting. There is something there, but I think where I heard something was at this end, and it was when I put the ferrite antenna on. That is our local station, I think it is. and it's with the ferrite antenna on. Now, if I do that, that's the external antenna. If I do that, it picks up on the ferrite antenna. And if I take my mini whip antenna and I'm going to connect it, instead of connecting it to here, I'm going to connect it to this little loop that I have here, which, see that? Let me just put that there. Where can I put this? See what I've done here? I've got the mini whip going in there, which is then radiating on that loop. And I put that in line. I'll have to show you what I'm doing here. I've just sort of placed it in the same axis as the ferrite antenna. And now let's see what we get. See that? Let's try long wave, also with the ferrite antenna. Now this is what I should be getting without the ferrite antenna, with the signal going into the back. So something happened on the underside when I was doing the cleaning. I cleaned the pots, and I cleaned the switches. I did something, and I've actually seen what it is. What I want to show you here is an example of why I say that sometimes you should leave well enough alone, because you can in fact do more harm than good. Now, there's no question I had to do the stuff that I did here, but I want to show you now what can happen to a radio that's working, and then you go one step further and the thing suddenly stops. And if you don't remember what it is you were doing between the time that it was working and the time that it stopped working, you can be looking around like crazy for ages to try and find the fault. I know what the fault is. I'm going to show you in a second. And when I fix that, hopefully this whole thing will come back to life. But let me switch it off and turn it around so we can have a good look at that. Tell me if you can see anything. If you can, you got better eyes than me. But I'm going to zoom in and show you what I'm talking about. There are various little problems here. I noticed that this guy, I don't even know if you can see that. This guy here is just floating in thin air. This one here, floating in thin air. Maybe it goes there, maybe it doesn't. This one here, floating in thin air. That one seems to be connected. I don't want to break any more. I think there are a few breaks on this section. This particular guy over here is no longer connected to where it's supposed to be, because it's broken down. Which is this one coming? Where's this one coming from? I can't even see where this one is. I think it's coming from there. I know this one's broken from here. I know that one goes there. So I think this guy, and it's probably part of the, it is part of the front end, and it is part of the circuit that's bypassed when you use the ferrite antenna switch, meaning the signal is not getting from the antenna to where it's supposed to go into the front end unless you select the ferrite antenna switch, which is that switch over here. So it makes sense. See, that's the ferrite antenna switch over here. So it makes sense. This thing is broken away and it's not making the connection. Now, usually this would be a real pain to find. Fortunately, I looked under and I saw these guys hanging around, and I realized I must have touched it. I must have pulled it somehow when I was doing part of this. And it was between the time that I showed you this thing working after recapping and the time that I started playing around trying to put doing the cleaning and putting the valves in. So I don't remember touching it. Maybe there was something on the bench when I pushed this back. That's all it takes. These things are very, very fine and actually quite difficult to see with the naked eye, at least for me. And what I'm going to need to do now is I need to follow the schematic of the front end, especially the area around the ferrite antenna switch, and see where these guys go to. Now that's going to be a bit of a task because I'm sitting with some flu. My eyesight's not the best right now. My patience levels are greatly reduced because of this flu, and I'm going to have to do this a little bit more calmly and get back to you as soon as I've done that. So contrary to my initial expectations, this series is probably going to have 3 videos, not just the 2 that I was hoping for, meaning that I'm going to leave you now and get cracking then once I feel a bit better with the fixing of that, the full IF alignment for the AM and the FM, the RF alignment for the AM and the FM, fixing that little dial pointer, and whatever else I find this needs. I don't think it needs much more. I've got a few little touch-ups on the dial glass I need to do, but that's just cosmetic. And I think we are nearly there, but I really did not expect this. Really didn't. So that's where I'll leave you now. Hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon, PayPal. Links are in the description below. So once again, thanks for watching. Bye for now. Most of all, stay sane.